Right now to talk about it is Joel Griffith. He's research fellow for the Heritage Foundation's Institute for Economic Freedom and Opportunity. And Jared Bernstein, the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities senior fellow, also a CNBC contributor. Jared, what do you think? You have advised Democrats. Is this a smart play?
Lee, if you're listening, don't go on TV today. Look, I hate to create a hole in your 12 o'clock spot, but, you know, the baseball players have a saying, a boo on the road is a cheer at home. As far as Elizabeth Warren's political brand and her campaign are concerned, these billionaires are doing her a great favor by inveighing against her wealth tax. Now, we can have very good arguments about whether her wealth tax is the right way to go after wealth, but the fact that wealth is more concentrated than it's ever been, this is a huge issue for Democrats, and the idea that so much wealth escapes taxation, especially unrealized gains, is at the heart of a really important public finance debate that she's helped to start. So I think she's done us a great service, and I think these billionaires are their own worst enemies right now.
If it's helping her, why are you against Lee Cooperman coming on then? You're against her?
Well, I'm just saying that, like, if those billionaires want to give me a tiny chunk of their wealth, I will give them some excellent media advice.
You should want Lee Cooperman to come on.
It's a fair point.
Because it helps Elizabeth Warren, unless you don't want to help Elizabeth Warren.
I'm just saying that look, I'm being honest. I don't understand the logic. These folks are their worst offenders.
You're being honest?
I'm always honest.
Oh, okay. Well, then you don't need to say it.
Joel, he brings up a good point. This is red meat to a lot of Elizabeth Warren supporters.
Well, Jared is arguing we should be having a discussion about the right way to go after this wealth. I would say that we should be discussing whether or not we should be going after this wealth at all, because what we know is that this capital that investors have been able to accumulate, it's not as if they're holding this in bank vaults under their mattresses. This is the capital that's being invested in research, being invested in development, it's being invested in new and existing business opportunities. If we begin taking that wealth, and the economic studies show that over a longer period of time, this would wipe out in excess of 70% of the wealth of some of these investors. This means negative economic results for all of us, not just on the wealthy.
Joel, I want to stop you because to me, there's an issue here, which is that folks like yourself, and I don't project onto you, but I'd say the Heritage and others, for a very, very long time have pushed back, frankly, on any, not wealth tax, but on any additional taxes at all. And in fact, I would argue that it's the result of that pushback on what I consider the low-hanging fruit on a system that doesn't work, that's led to maybe, and we can describe it as an overshoot if you'd like. The pendulum maybe has swung now too far to the point where conversation is meaningfully happening in this country around a wealth tax. But I would argue to you that the reason this conversation about a wealth tax is even happening is because the easy stuff, the stuff that seems so unfair to the average American, has been allowed to persist as long as it has. How do you think about that?
No, I think I understand where you're coming from, but the fact is a lot of these proposals have worked. If we've looked at how we've had the top income tax rate has been brought down from where it was in the 1970s. We've seen the gain on capital, we've seen the income tax on capital gains. We've seen that come down substantially. And I would argue that we've seen positive economic results from that. We have median household income at an all-time record high. And if you compare our average family to Germany, for instance, which is a very prosperous country, our disposable income per family in this country is $11,000 higher than Germany, for instance. And that is a gap that has widened.
But then how would you answer the question about the inequality gap, which has only risen?
I think that our focus should not be on the difference in equality of wealth or income. The focus should be on the gap in equality of opportunity.
Let me get in here. So first of all, pretty much every Democrat running for office strongly disagrees that inequality should be off the table. And I understand why you'd want to go there. But I think more fundamentally, Joel is really telling the old supply-side trickle-down story. And that's just been disproved time and time again. And Exhibit A right now is the Trump tax cuts, which were billed, a very significant cut in the corporate rate, which were billed as an investment charger. And business investment has been an extreme soft spot. It's actually been a negative in the past 2 quarters.
That he just floated this week, and Larry Kudlow talked about too, to offer tax cuts to the middle class if they come up with tax cut 2.0.
You know, I don't think it's a good idea, to tell you the truth. And the reason is that We have a big revenue problem in this country, and we don't talk about this enough because we're so focused on the high-level fights between the candidates and the billionaires. The motivation for these policies that Warren and Sanders and Biden, and frankly all of them are talking about, is to raise the revenues to support meeting the challenges.
It's not to cancel out the deficit, though. They are talking about
not
big
canceling out the
programs with
deficit.
additional spending.
It's a fair point and a good point, and I actually think I would like to see the deficit.
Jared, I'm going to push back on you, which is to say the thing that I don't understand about this for the life of me is if you're going to push a wealth tax, it's not being advertised as a revenue generator. It's just not. That's not the ad.
Oh, no, that's wrong.
Not the ad that Elizabeth Warren is taking out. That's not the ad that Bernie Sanders is taking out. I actually don't know why they don't call it the wealth insurance program, which is to say we're going to tax you to effectively protect your wealth. I mean, let's just be honest.
Well,
about
no, wait a second. So when she first,
about how it's being marketed.
So when she first introduced her wealth tax, she talked about raising over $2 trillion over 10 years. The reason I remember that is because there was a lot of scuffling and fighting about whether that was a realistic number, and we can have that discussion. So initially, there was a revenue focus. I think what's happened is she's found this political opening because of the kinds of arguments that this ad is generating and all the debates that we had, and that's a political winner for her, as I said. But initially, the idea here, and it's still all over her materials, is to raise pay-fors to pay for her programs. And I agree with Becky, that doesn't take down the deficit that we have, but theoretically it doesn't add to it.
Hey, Joe, you need to push back. I mean, I don't want to tell you what happened?
Go ahead.
Oh, Joe, you need to push back on this narrative that I hear. When someone from the left just says, you know what, the jury is in, trickle down and supply side growth does not work. That's such crap. That's a load of crap, Jared, that it's been proven that it doesn't work.
If I can interject here.
It's not empirical. Go ahead, Joe.
If I can interject.
It's not empirical. It's
one second,
ludicrous. If you grow the pie, you have more to split up. If all you do is split it up, a smaller pie, it doesn't help anyone. Go ahead, Joel.
Look, we have statistics on this, thankfully. And this is government data, and I'm sorry, Jared, the numbers aren't on your side on this.
I cited government data.
Median household income is at an all-time record high, second all-time record high that we've had.
Unemployment.
Second of all.
Not the second of all-time greatest high that we've ever had.
It is. Census Bureau data.
Median family income has hit record highs about 30 times.
And if I can finish
I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to let you finish your thoughts because we are out of time on this.
Go look at the